My husband's life insurance form listed another woman as his spouse, and the address beside her name was not a typo, not an old contact, not a clerical mistake, but a blue two-story house 43 minutes from ours with a child's bike in the driveway and my husband's truck parked behind the garage. The woman's name was Claire Morgan. I had never heard it in 12 years of marriage. The strangest part was not even that she was listed as his spouse. It was the birthday printed under her name, because it was the same date Evan always claimed he had to be in Chicago for a quarterly review, every single year, without fail. For years, I had watched him pack that black carry-on the week after Thanksgiving, kiss our daughter on the forehead, promise me he would call from the hotel, and disappear for 3 days. I used to feel guilty for resenting those trips. He worked in logistics for a medical supply company, and December was always chaos. At least that was the story I had lived inside. My name is Mara Whitfield. I was 42 and worked as a compliance coordinator for a regional credit union outside Columbus, Ohio. I spent my days checking forms, signatures and numbers that were almost right but not actually right. At home, I had trusted Evan precisely because he seemed incapable of disorder. We had been married 12 years. He remembered oil changes, kept spare chargers in both cars and put every receipt into a labeled envelope. After my first marriage ended badly, that steadiness felt less romantic than necessary. My daughter Lily was 4 when Evan and I married at the Franklin County Courthouse. After the ceremony, he knelt beside her yellow dress and said, "I know I'm not your dad, but I'll always be on your team." He kept that promise in every visible way. He drove her to orthodontist appointments, helped with algebra and taught her to parallel park in an empty church lot. By 16, she called him Dad. Our life was ordinary enough to feel protected, a modest house in Worthington, 2 aging cars, a dog named Pickle, Friday pizza, a college fund and a calendar on the refrigerator. That ordinary life was what I stood to lose. The first thing that ever felt wrong was not another woman's perfume, not lipstick, not a phone turned face down. It was an envelope from North Star Mutual sitting on the kitchen counter with Evan's name and the words, "Beneficiary Confirmation" enclosed, printed above the address window. It arrived on a rainy Tuesday in March. Evan was in the shower. I was sorting mail while our coffee brewed, half awake, still thinking about a report due at work. We had life insurance through his employer, and I assumed the envelope was one of those annual notices people toss into a drawer. I almost did exactly that. Then I saw the corner of a second page through the plastic window. The line said, "Primary beneficiary, Claire Morgan, spouse." I stood there with the envelope in my hand while the coffee machine clicked and hissed. My first thought was absurdly calm: they sent the wrong person's form. I turned the envelope over. Evan Whitfield. Our address. Not a mistake. My second thought was that Claire Morgan might be a maiden name from some old HR template, maybe a previous employee, maybe the company had mixed records during open enrollment. I have seen bad data do ridiculous things. At the credit union, one wrong digit once connected a retired schoolteacher's loan file to a roofing contractor. Systems fail. People mistype. The sane part of me reached for that explanation like a railing. Evan came downstairs in a blue shirt, hair damp, smelling like sandalwood soap. I set the envelope on the counter and said, "North Star sent something weird." He glanced at it while pouring coffee. Not long. Just enough for his face to change and change back. If I had not spent years reading people across desks while they tried to explain overdrafts they did not want to admit, I might have missed it. "What weird thing?" he asked. "It says your beneficiary is Claire Morgan. Spouse." He picked up the envelope, laughed once, and shook his head. "That has to be HR, Claire is a benefits administrator at work." I remember the relief hitting me before the logic did. A benefits administrator. Of course. Names show up where they should not all the time. Why would it say spouse? I asked. "Because North Star uses bad templates," he said, already opening the fridge. "I'll call them today." "You know her?" "I know of her. She handles paperwork." He kissed the side of my head and added, "Don't let a dumb form ruin your morning." That sentence should have helped. Instead, it stayed with me all day, because he said, "I know of her," after saying, "Claire is a benefits administrator." At my desk that afternoon, I looked up his company directory. I knew I should not need to. I knew a normal wife would let her husband make the phone call and move on. But compliance work gives you a low tolerance for vague answers. His company had a public staff page. No Claire Morgan. I searched LinkedIn. No Claire Morgan at Granger Medical Logistics. I searched the Ohio Insurance Licensing Database in case she was a Northstar employee. Nothing that matched. By 5 o'clock, my head had built 10 innocent explanations and torn down 9 of them. Evan came home with takeout because he said he knew I had a long day. He acted normal. That made me feel both better and worse. After dinner, I asked, "Did you call Northstar?" He did not look up from loading the dishwasher. "Yeah. They said it was a migration error." "Migration from what?" "Their old system." "So they fixed it?" "They said they would." He closed the dishwasher with his hip. "Mara, it's handled." I nodded because Lily was at the table with earbuds in, pretending not to listen. She was 16 by then, old enough to notice tension and young enough to still believe adults could explain it away. I did not push. That night, when Evan fell asleep, I lay beside him staring at the ceiling fan and repeated his words in order. "Claire is a benefits administrator. I know of her. Migration error. It's handled." None of them were impossible. Together, they felt rehearsed. The next morning, I called Northstar from my car before work. I did not pretend to be Evan. I said I was his spouse and asked whether a beneficiary confirmation could list an administrator as a spouse by accident. The representative was polite but firm. She could not discuss policy details with me unless I was authorized. I said I understood. Then I asked a general process question, the kind I ask vendors all the time. Would a benefits administrator's name ever appear in a beneficiary field because of a system migration? There was a small pause. "No, ma'am," she said. Beneficiary fields are populated from employee elections or submitted forms. And relationship fields? Also employee elected. I thanked her and hung up. I sat in the parking lot with my hands still on the steering wheel, watching a woman in scrubs hurry through the rain with a paper bag over her head. Employee elected. That did not prove an affair. It proved Evan's explanation had failed. At lunch, I checked our shared files. Evan had always been organized, maybe too organized. Tax returns in one folder, mortgage documents in another, health insurance, car insurance, warranties. The life insurance folder was empty except for an old PDF from 4 years earlier listing me as the sole beneficiary. I printed it, put it in my purse, and told myself I was being ridiculous. Then the second envelope arrived. This one was not from Northstar. It was from a pediatric dental office in Westerville, addressed to Evan Whitfield, care of our home address. The statement said, "Patient, Noah Morgan. Guarantor, Evan Whitfield. Balance due, $186. I read it 3 times before the word settled. Noah Morgan. Morgan, like Claire. A child's dental bill, mailed to my husband at my house. I did not confront Evan that night. That was the first moment I understood something bigger than cheating might be happening. If it had been a hotel receipt or a romantic text, I might have exploded. But a child's dental bill made the room go quiet inside me. It introduced a different kind of fear. Who was Noah? Why was Evan financially responsible for him? Why did the office have our address? And why, if this was innocent, had Evan not told me? I took a photo of the bill and put the original back in the mail stack exactly where I found it. Then I cooked spaghetti, listened to Lily complain about her history teacher, and watched Evan eat garlic bread like a man who did not have another child's name sitting between us. After dinner, he picked up the mail, flipped through it, and stopped. His shoulders rose slightly. "Weird," he said. "What?" I asked. "Some dental office sent us somebody else's bill." He held it up loosely. "Probably same last name mix-up. The last name is Morgan." "No," I mean guarantor. Maybe another Evan Whitfield. He smiled at me, and that smile was the first time I saw calculation instead of warmth. I'll call tomorrow. You seem to call a lot of people tomorrow, I said. The words came out before I decided to say them. He looked at me for half a second too long. What does that mean? Nothing. Mara. It means I don't understand why your insurance form called a woman your spouse and now a child with her last name has you listed as guarantor. He folded the bill once, carefully. I told you the insurance thing was handled. You didn't tell me about Noah Morgan. Because I don't know who that is. He said it quickly. Too quickly. Lily's chair scraped upstairs. Evan lowered his voice. Not here. Then where? After she's asleep. But after Lily went to her room, Evan claimed a migraine and lay down with his arm over his eyes. By morning, the dental bill was gone from the counter. I found the envelope torn into small pieces at the bottom of the kitchen trash under coffee grounds. That was the end of me trying to be the wife who waits for tomorrow. I did not hack his phone. I did not follow him. I did what my job had trained me to do. I built a file. I started with what I had access to, our bank accounts, our shared calendar, our mortgage statements, our tax returns, our insurance folder, our car maintenance records. At first, nothing screamed. Evan was careful. His paycheck went where it always went. Bills were paid. Groceries looked normal. Then I noticed the cash withdrawals. Not huge amounts. 200 here. 300 there. Always on Thursdays. Always near the same branch in Powell, a suburb between our house and Westerville. I pulled 6 months of statements. The pattern held. Thursday cash, every other week, sometimes weekly around holidays. When I checked our shared calendar, Thursday was usually marked regional route audit or supplier check. Work travel, but local enough that he came home by dinner. I found old December calendars next. Chicago Review. Chicago Review. Chicago Review. 3 days each year, always over Claire Morgan's birthday according to the insurance form. I did not sleep much after that. My mind kept trying to arrange the pieces into something smaller. Maybe Claire was a relative. Maybe Noah was a nephew. Maybe Evan had been helping someone privately because he knew I would object. Maybe there was an addiction, a debt, a secret obligation from before me. Each possibility hurt differently, but none of them explained spouse. On Friday, I called the pediatric dental office from my work parking lot. I explained that a statement addressed to my husband had reached our home and asked only whether they could remove our address. The receptionist did exactly what privacy rules required. She refused to discuss the patient or alter anything without the guarantor's authorization. She did not confirm that Noah existed, and she did not need to. The statement already carried an account number, Evan's full name and our exact address. Someone had entered those details deliberately. I thanked her, hung up and sat with both hands around my phone. The refusal did not answer my questions. It removed the last easy route to calling the bill junk mail. On Saturday morning, Evan said he needed to stop by the warehouse for 2 hours. I said I was taking Lily shopping for cleats. He kissed me like nothing had shifted. When he left, I drove to the address from the insurance form. I know how that sounds. I know it was not noble. But I had an address tied to my husband, a woman listed as his spouse, and a child's bill sent to my house. I was not chasing a hunch anymore. I was verifying the existence of a place. The house was on a quiet street with trimmed hedges and a basketball hoop over the garage. Blue siding, white shutters, yellow wreath on the door even though it was March. A silver Honda sat in the driveway. Evan's truck was not there. I parked 2 houses down and told myself I would leave after 5 minutes. Then the front door opened. A boy came out first, maybe 9 or 10, wearing a red hoodie and carrying a soccer ball. Behind him was a woman with dark hair in a ponytail, holding a travel mug and laughing at something he said. Claire Morgan, I assumed. She looked tired in the normal way mothers look tired, not glamorous, not dangerous, not like the villain my mind wanted. A minute later, Evan walked out of the house carrying a folded lawn chair. He bent down, tied the boy's cleat, and ruffled his hair. The boy leaned into him like this was routine. Claire reached up and brushed lint from Evan's jacket. He kissed her temple before opening the passenger door of the Honda. I did not scream. I did not get out. I did not take a video. I sat there with both hands on the steering wheel and felt something inside me go cold and practical. Then I drove away before they could see me. I spent the rest of that day in a state that looked normal from the outside and felt impossible from the inside. I bought Lily's cleats. I helped her choose a birthday gift for her friend. I made sandwiches. I answered a work email. Evan came home at 2:17 and said the warehouse had been a mess. I noticed he had grass on one shoe. He noticed me noticing. Parking lot median, he said. I had not asked. That was the thing about lies. Once you hear one clearly, you start hearing the extra ones people add to protect it. I wanted to say Claire's name at dinner. I wanted to ask if Noah liked soccer. I wanted to throw the dental bill across the table, except he had already shredded it, which meant he knew exactly what it was. Instead, I waited. From the outside, waiting might have looked patient. It did not feel patient. It felt like standing in a house that might collapse if I moved too fast. Lily had 2 months left of junior year. Our mortgage renewal was coming up. My mother was recovering from hip surgery. Evan and I had joint savings, shared retirement plans, a college fund, a dog, neighbors, routines. I needed to understand the system before I touched it. On Monday, I took a personal day and used the same public records I checked for work when collateral ownership became unclear. The county auditor's site showed that the Blue House was owned by Red Fern Holdings, not Claire Morgan. A scanned deed in the recorder's index led me to the company's state filing. Its statutory agent was a small Dublin law office, but tax notices went to a post office box in Powell, the same suburb where Evan made the Thursday cash withdrawals. I searched Evan's legal name and found nothing connected to Red Fern. That absence was not proof of innocence. It meant someone had placed a company between him and the house. I printed the deed, the filing, and the tax address. By then the evidence had 3 connected parts: a woman named as spouse, a child for whom Evan was billed as guarantor, and a house hidden behind an LLC. I still did not know whether Noah was Evan's child or whether Claire knew I existed. Tuesday added the name Evan had hidden behind. I came home early because Lily had a fever. In the mail was a payment failure postcard from a storage facility in Powell addressed to Meridian Route Consulting. The card identified Unit 118 and used the same post office box that appeared on Red Fern's filing. I searched Meridian in the Public Business Registry. It had been formed 8 years earlier by E. W. Mercer. Mercer was Evan's middle name, a name I had seen only on the mat beneath his high school graduation photograph. The company's purpose was listed as transportation consulting, which gave new meaning to the route audits on our refrigerator calendar. I photographed the postcard and left it where it had arrived. I did not visit the unit or call the facility. I no longer needed a stranger to violate anyone's privacy for me. The record showed a house, a company, a storage account and a work identity joined by one mailing address. Evan was not improvising an affair. He was maintaining a second operating system. That night, Evan came home cheerful with grocery store flowers. He set them in a vase without asking if I wanted them. For surviving Monday, he said. It was Tuesday. He always did that when he was distracted, lost the day by one. I watched him trim the stems and wondered which house had gotten flowers yesterday. How was Lily? He asked. Fever broke. Good. He poured water into the vase. I might have to go to Chicago early this year. They're moving the review. It's March. I know. They're trying to plan ahead. When? Not sure. He avoided my eyes. Maybe the week after Thanksgiving again, maybe earlier. The week after Thanksgiving again. Claire's birthday. The annual review. The folder in my mind grew heavier. I said, does your company still use Claire Morgan for benefits? The vase slipped half an inch on the counter. Water sloshed over his fingers. What? You said Claire handled benefits. I couldn't find her in the company directory. Why were you looking up my coworkers? Because your paperwork called her your spouse. I told you that was fixed. Was it? He set the flowers down. Mara, this is starting to feel like you don't trust me. That line almost worked because it reached into the oldest soft place in me, the place that did not want to be the suspicious wife, the damaged wife, the woman who let one bad marriage make her unfair. But then I saw the boy in the red hoodie leaning into him at the blue house. Should I? I asked. Evan's face hardened, then softened on purpose. I have never given you a reason not to. He said it with such calm that for 1 second I questioned my own memory. That scared me more than his anger would have. The next morning, I met family attorney Denise Calder. I gave her facts rather than conclusions, the beneficiary form, the dental statement, the property deed, 2 business filings, the storage postcard and what I had seen at the Blue House. Denise told me not to access a locked device, impersonate Evan or move joint money without advice. She asked me to preserve records already available to me and to download current statements from accounts on which I was an owner. In our shared mortgage renewal folder, I found a credit summary PDF Evan had saved 2 years earlier. It listed an individual line of credit opened 7 years before, with correspondence directed to the Powell post office box. The balance at the time of that report was $18,400. A paid car loan on the same summary matched the lender shown on an old financing sticker still visible on Claire's silver Honda. The PDF was not current and did not tell me whose money bought the house. It did prove that Evan had been financing obligations through the same hidden address for years. That evening, Lily asked why I was so quiet. I said work was stressful. She looked at me over her cereal bowl and said, "Is Dad stressed too? He's been weird about his old phone." "What old phone?" She shrugged. "The one in the garage cabinet. He got mad when I was looking for batteries." I kept my spoon in the bowl because lifting it suddenly felt impossible. "When?" "Sunday. Sunday, the day after I saw him at Claire's house. Later, when Evan took Pickle around the block, I went to the garage. The cabinet over the workbench had batteries, extension cords, paintbrushes, and a shoebox labeled sprinkler parts. Inside the shoebox was an old Samsung phone wrapped in a microfiber cloth. It was dead. I put it back exactly as I found it. I did not try to break into it. I did not need to. The existence of a hidden phone was another category, communication. The file was not a file anymore. It was a map. I decided that Claire deserved one clean fact before Evan could invent another explanation for both of us. I wrote a 1-page letter addressed to her personally. I said my name was Mara Whitfield, that Evan Whitfield had been my legal husband for 12 years, and that a beneficiary notice had listed her as his spouse. I included the public case number of our marriage record, not a photograph of Lily or any private financial document. I asked her to contact me only if this information contradicted what Evan had told her. I sent the letter with delivery tracking and waited. 2 evenings later, a text arrived from an unfamiliar number. "I received your letter. Please tell me this is about a different Evan." I replied with his full name and date of birth. She asked to meet the next morning in a reserved study room at the Westerville Library. When I entered, Claire was already seated with a folder against her chest. She looked exhausted, not defiant. I set my certified marriage record on the table. She read the first line, then looked at me and whispered, "How can he be your husband when he is mine?" "That is what I came to understand," I said. Claire pointed to the chair across from her. For several seconds neither of us spoke. Beside her folder sat a travel mug, a packet of crayons and a library book about planets that Noah had apparently left in her car. Those ordinary objects made the situation harder to reduce to an affair. Her life looked as routine as mine had looked from the outside. She said, "What did you say your last name was?" "Whitfield." "No." She shook her head slowly. "No, his last name is Mercer." I opened the folder on my lap and showed her a copy of our courthouse marriage certificate. Evan Daniel Whitfield. My name. Date. Franklin County. She pressed her fingers to her mouth. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out her phone. Her lock screen was a picture of Evan, Claire, and Noah in front of a Christmas tree. Evan wore the same gray sweater he had worn in our family photos that year. I knew because I had bought it. We're not legally married, she whispered. We had a ceremony in Hocking Hills. He said his divorce was complicated and he didn't want the state involved until it was clean. I know how stupid that sounds now. When? I asked. 7 years ago. 7 years. The line of credit. The car loan. The storage unit. How old is Noah? 9. My breath caught. Is Evan his father? She nodded, then stopped. I thought he was. I mean, he is on everything. School forms, dental, soccer. Noah calls him Dad. He has since he was little. Since he was little. Evan came into our lives when Noah was almost 2. He said he had left a bad marriage but was protecting assets until the divorce was final. She looked at my ring. He told me his ex-wife was unstable. I almost laughed, but it would have come out wrong. That was me. He never said your name. Did he say he had a stepdaughter? Claire closed her eyes. He said his ex had a daughter he helped raise but that she turned the child against him. I looked through the windshield at a father walking into the library with a toddler on his shoulders, both of them laughing. My anger did not disappear, but it found a second target, not Claire, not Noah, but the architecture Evan had built out of half-truths. He had not merely hidden us from each other. He had made each of us into the explanation for why the other could not ask questions. To me, Claire was a paperwork error. To Claire, I was a dangerous ex. To his company, maybe I was the wife. To the soccer league, she was. To Noah, he was Dad. To Lily, he was Dad. He had created roles for everyone and assigned them without consent. Why did the dental bill come to my address? I asked. Claire wiped her face with the heel of her hand. Because I changed the billing email after Evan missed 3 payments. The office said the guarantor address was whatever he gave them at intake. I didn't know it was yours. I swear to God, I didn't. I believe you, I said, and I did, which somehow hurt more. We compared timelines in that study room for almost 2 hours. I learned that Evan spent alternating Thursday evenings at Claire's house under the label of route audits. He attended Noah's school conferences by claiming supplier visits. The annual Chicago Review was not Chicago. It was the birthday trip he took with Claire and Noah, usually to a cabin in Michigan or a rented condo near Lake Erie. When he called me from the hotel, he was often standing outside after Noah fell asleep. When he texted Claire that work was impossible, he was at home eating dinner with me and Lily. Claire showed me photos, not to wound me, but because facts were the only language either of us trusted by then. Evan and Noah at a science fair. Evan holding a birthday cake. Evan in the silver Honda. Evan assembling a trampoline. Evan wearing the same navy coat he wore in our Christmas card. I showed her our photos too. Evan teaching Lily to drive. Evan at my mother's birthday. Evan asleep on our couch with Pickle on his chest. We were not rivals. We were witnesses. Then Claire opened Noah's school packet. On the emergency contact authorization, Evan had identified himself as Evan Mercer, parent, and listed Meridian Route Consulting as his employer. A business card clipped behind it carried the same name, the same company and a phone number I had never seen. He told me he owned the company, Claire said. He told me Granger Medical was his largest client. In my house, Granger was his employer and Meridian did not exist. In hers, Meridian was his career and Granger was the excuse that controlled his schedule. The company was not merely moving money. It allowed one man to occupy 2 biographies. Claire called the school from the library lobby while I stood beside her. She did not ask for details. She asked what documents they had on file for Noah's emergency contacts. I heard only her side of the conversation, but it was enough. Yes, Evan Mercer. Yes. Is there another last name anywhere? No, I understand. When she hung up, she said, he listed his brother as backup emergency contact. Ryan in Arizona? I asked. She nodded. I've met Ryan twice. He came to Noah's 5th birthday. I had seen photos of Ryan camping with his kids that same weekend, according to Evan. Or maybe not. Maybe the photos were old. Maybe every memory now had to be audited. Does Ryan know? Claire asked. I don't know. I called Ryan from my car after Claire left the library. He answered on the 4th ring, distracted and cheerful. Hey, Mara. Everything okay? I said, did you go to a child's birthday party for a boy named Noah 4 years ago? Silence. Not confusion. Calculation. Mara, he said quietly, you need to talk to Evan. I am talking to you. He exhaled. I didn't know he was still with you. That sentence did something no document had done. It made me pull over because the road tilted. What does that mean? He told us you separated. Years ago. Who is us? Me. Mom and Dad. I mean, Mom knew more than Dad, I think. I don't know. Evan said you were staying legally married for Lily's school and insurance, but that you had both moved on. I laughed once, sharp and empty. I cooked dinner with him 4 nights a week. Jesus. Ryan's voice cracked. Mara, I swear I thought you knew about Claire. Did you know about Noah? Yes. Did you know Lily still calls him Dad? He did not answer. Ryan. I thought it was complicated. That is what people say when they choose not to know. I hung up before he could apologize. There are betrayals inside betrayals. Evans was the central one, but his family had become load-bearing walls. They had accepted a version of me that made their discomfort manageable. They had seen Claire and Noah, eaten cake, posed for pictures, and filed me under complicated. That night, I did not go home immediately. I drove to my mother's apartment and told her enough to explain why I needed Lily to stay there for the weekend. My mother listened with a hand over her mouth. When I finished, she said, do not let him talk you into confusion. It was the clearest advice I received. I texted Lily that Grandma missed her and wanted a sleepover. Then I went home. Evan was in the kitchen making grilled cheese like it was any Thursday. Where's Lily? He asked. At Mom's. He turned from the stove. Why? I placed the folder on the table. Insurance form. Dental bill photo. LLC printouts. Credit summary PDF. Property records. Storage postcard. Photos Claire had texted me. A screenshot of Noah with Evan at the Christmas tree. I said, sit down. He looked at the folder, then at me. For the first time since this began, he did not have a sentence ready. Mara, he said. Sit down. Where did you get those? That is not the first question you should ask. He wiped his hands on a towel and sat. I stayed standing because sitting across from him felt too much like negotiation. Who is Claire Morgan? I asked. His face did a terrible thing. It tried 3 masks before choosing one: concern, confusion, exhaustion. She is someone I helped years ago. Do not do that. Do what? Offer me the smallest version and wait to see what I can prove. He looked at the folder again. You don't understand. Then explain why your life insurance says she is your spouse. That was for paperwork. What paperwork? She needed stability for Noah. Is Noah your child? He opened his mouth, closed it, then said, not biologically. I had not expected that. It landed differently than yes would have. Does he know that? No. Does Claire? Yes. Later, Claire would tell me that was not true, not exactly. She had told Evan Noah's biological father was gone and wanted no involvement. Evan offered to step in. He never adopted Noah. He just became dad by presents and paperwork and lies. But in that moment, Evan used even Noah's origin as a shield. So you created a fake marriage to help a child? I asked. It wasn't fake to them. Was ours fake? He flinched. No. Then what was this? I was trying to take care of everyone. That sentence made my vision narrow. Not because it was the worst thing he said, but because it was the cleanest window into how he justified himself. He had not built a second life because he hated me. He had built it because he wanted every benefit of being needed by two families and none of the cost of telling the truth. Everyone. I said. You mean yourself. He leaned forward. Mara, I know how it looks. It looks organized. It got out of hand. A 7-year LLC does not get out of hand. A storage unit does not get out of hand. Annual birthday trips do not get out of hand. His jaw tightened. You talked to Claire. Yes. You had no right. You listed another woman as your spouse on an insurance form attached to our household. You mailed her child's dental bill to my kitchen. You brought this into my life. He stood then, anger finally breaking through. You think you're the only one who suffered? Claire needed me. Noah needed me. You had Lily. You had your job. You were fine. There it was. The moral math he had used to split himself. I was fine, therefore available to be deceived. Claire needed him, therefore entitled to a version of him built from theft. Noah loved him, therefore truth could wait. I was your wife, I said. Not a resource you could redistribute. Evan sat back down like his knees had failed. The room was quiet except for the stove burner clicking because the grilled cheese had started to burn. I turned it off. That tiny domestic act almost broke me. Even in the middle of finding out my marriage had been divided into compartments, I was still the person preventing smoke from filling the kitchen. What do you want? He asked. It was such a small question for such a large ruin. Access to every financial record connected to Red Fern and Meridian. Written confirmation of what debts exist. A full list of accounts. You will leave this house tonight. You will tell Lily enough of the truth with me present, but not details that make her responsible for your choices. You will not contact Claire except about Noah through writing until she decides what she wants. And tomorrow I am meeting Denise Calder at 9. Who is Denise? My attorney. The word changed him. His sadness hardened into calculation again. You already got a lawyer? I got information. Mara, divorce will destroy everyone. No. What you built did that. The paperwork only names it. He rubbed both hands over his face. I can fix this. Which house? He looked up. What? Which house are you offering to fix right now? He did not answer, because there was no answer that did not reveal the structure. For years, Evan's gift had been making himself indispensable in every room. Now the rooms were visible to each other, and he could not stand in both at once. We told Lily the next evening. I will not write every word of that conversation because some pain belongs to the person who lived it, and Lily did not choose to have her private life turned into a lesson. I will say this, Evan tried to soften the truth until it became fog, and I stopped him. Your dad had another household, I said gently. There is a woman named Claire and a boy named Noah. He has been part of their life for years without telling us. Lily stared at him. Is Noah my brother? Evan started crying. Not by blood, he said. But I love him. Lily's face closed in a way I had never seen. Do you love us in the same way? Like, part-time? No, honey. Do not call me honey. She got up and walked to her room. Evan tried to follow. I blocked him. Give her space. She needs me. She needs not to manage your panic. He stayed in a hotel that night. The following week turned the hidden life into a financial case. Denise filed for temporary orders requiring both of us to preserve marital assets and disclose accounts. I moved my future paycheck into an account in my name after she approved it, while every dollar already held jointly remained traceable. Evan first described Meridian as a dormant side project. The statements produced by his attorney showed otherwise: storage fees, mileage, soccer registration, repairs at the Blue House and transfers routed through the Powell box. Red Fern was more serious. Its purchase file showed that the down payment had come from a home equity line secured against our house. The application carried an electronic version of my signature. I had never applied for it. Denise did not promise an easy victory. She requested the lender's audit trail, including the email address used for consent, login records, and the device associated with the electronic signature. "This is the part a court can measure," she said. Claire had been told the money came from an inheritance. Evan's grandfather had died before I met him and left him a watch, not a house deposit. Claire hired her own attorney. We agreed to exchange only records relevant to ownership, identity, and the children. Evan kept trying to separate us with revised explanations. He told me Claire had pressured him, told Claire I wanted to punish Noah, and told his brother he was having a breakdown. We forwarded those messages to counsel instead of answering them privately. Once his versions could be compared, they stopped functioning as explanations. The confrontation with his parents happened 3 weeks later at their kitchen table. I went with Denise's blessing, not to argue, but to clarify what they knew before Lily decided whether she wanted contact. Evan's mother, Carol, cried before I even sat down. His father looked 10 years older than he had at Christmas. "We thought you had an arrangement," Carol said. "Did you ever ask me?" She folded a napkin into smaller and smaller squares. Evan said asking would humiliate you. "So you protected me by celebrating with the family he hid from me?" His father whispered, "Carol." She said, "Noah is a child. So was Lily." That ended the conversation. Not because there was nothing more to say, but because everything after that would have been noise. Lily chose not to see Evan for a month. When she finally did, it was with a therapist present. Noah was told a child-appropriate version by Claire, with professional guidance, not the version Evan wanted, where adults were figuring out complicated love. Claire refused that phrasing. So did I. Complicated love was not the problem. Deception was. The legal process took 11 months. The lender's audit showed that the home equity consent link had been sent to an old email account Evan knew I rarely checked, then opened from a device registered to him. Faced with that record, he stopped claiming I had approved the loan and accepted responsibility for it in the settlement. The lender released me from the disputed obligation after review, but keeping our home still required refinancing at a worse rate. I managed it with help from my mother and a budget that taught me how many dinners one rotisserie chicken could become. Red Fern was dissolved, and the Blue House was sold. Claire and Noah moved into a rental near his school. Evan's contact with Noah was structured through a family therapist while Claire corrected the school and medical records. Lily changed her last name back to mine before graduation. She speaks to Evan occasionally now, on terms she controls. Claire and I did not become instant friends. We became reliable witnesses for each other. We exchanged documents, corrected false records and refused to make 2 children carry information that belonged to adults. The last time Evan collected boxes from our house, he looked at the empty wall where our family photographs had hung and said, "I never meant to lose you." I believed that he had not meant to lose anyone. He had meant to keep everyone without allowing any of us to choose. "You didn't lose me," I said. "You built a life that required me not to know where I lived inside it." He lowered his eyes, and for once he offered no smaller version. A year later, Claire sent me a photograph of Noah's corrected emergency contact form. No alias. No invented company. No false relationship. The North Star policy was corrected too. My name came off because the marriage ended openly, not because another woman replaced me in secret. People sometimes ask how I missed a second life that lasted 7 years. The better question is how Evan made each ordinary detail explain the next one. Work trips explained birthdays. Route audits explained Thursdays. A consulting company explained money. A false name explained why 2 households could search for him and find different men. None of those clues looked decisive alone. Together they formed a system. I still work in compliance, and I still believe most mistakes are only mistakes. But I no longer confuse familiarity with proof. Mine began with a line on an insurance form, Claire Morgan, spouse. I thought it was the first error in the file. It was the first accurate description of the life Evan had hidden from me.